As current UNC students head home for the summer, next year's new students are already making moving plans. But 8 miles down Tobacco Road, a new rooming policy has incoming first years planning for something they might not have expected. Starting this fall, Duke University will no longer allow first years to select their own roommates. They made the decision this past year after studying roommate data and selection preferences. Vice President of Student Affairs Larry Mineta saw some clear trends.
We noticed that increasingly students were self-selecting a roommate. Those roommates and students tended to be more like each other than not. Nothing inherently wrong necessarily, but contradictory to the values that we're trying to lead with in the quality of the residential experience.
Mineta stresses this change is to cultivate diversity more than anything else. He also emphasizes that selection will not be completely random.
Like before, Duke still asks incoming students to fill out a roommate matching form to help with compatibility. It has lifestyle statements such as smoking, waking up early, and community preferences, with yes and no responses. In comparison, UNC has students fill out a rooming profile to help them choose or find a roommate. It has similar questions, but the responses are on a visual scale instead.
Carolina Housing Director Alan Blattner is no stranger to the roommate assignment process. Before coming to Chapel Hill, he worked in housing at UNC Charlotte, who also assigned roommates to all first-year students. He says the difference in approach simply comes down to philosophy.
I think first of all, half of our students are already leaving it up to us. And so, the question then becomes, do we want to take away the choice for the other half to pick at least one or more of their roommates? And, and this is where, I think philosophically, we think that choice might be important for some students.
One criticism Duke faces with this policy is allowing athletics to be involved in the pairing process. Teams have a say in who their players room with, likely pairing them with other athletes. But UNC fencer Sydney Persing says this is normal for universities and athletics to do.
Not all the same rules apply to athletes, for good and for bad. So just because there's a new policy that aims for one thing, there's 1,000 other policies at Duke and at Carolina where it doesn't apply the same to athletes, for better or for worse. So I think that it's a mistake to not let all students select who they live with, but as far as the distinction from athletes to non-athletes, I think that certainly makes sense.
Athletes aren't the only students to have extra considerations during pairing. Older first-year undergraduates, students with disabilities, and potentially ROTC members may also be paired with each other. Although the university is already facing some criticism from families, Mineta says there's still a positive response. He says Duke will keep a close eye on how this policy might create change for their new students.
Obviously the success of this will be determined by the extent to which it really does accomplish our objectives of inviting and encouraging students to sort of step out of their comfort zones. And as we sort of track the classes ahead, follow them for all 4 years, we should be able to get a sense of how well has this achieved those objectives.
No matter the outcome, it's likely Duke's first years are already making plans for that first day with their new roommates. For Carolina Week, I'm Brighton McConnell.